It's 5:30, and I'll call the meeting to order. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's commission meeting. First item is under regular session, item C, adoption of the agenda. We do have some modifications and additions to the agenda. First, under presentations, we will have an item B, Main Street grant presentation. Then item C will be the AWOL budget. Item D then will be the 2019 year-end report. Under items for commission action, with item F, I would like to move up item G from reports, and we'll have an addition to items for agenda or commission action, item I, consider authorizing a for-pause fund day on July 11th, 2020. Commissioners, are there any other modifications or additions to tonight's agenda?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay. With that, then I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
I second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. First item, presentations. Item 2, the award ceremony for fire EMS. Fire Chief Wallace, would you like to come forward, and would you like the commissioners to join you at this time? Okay, thank you.
On April 10th, 2020, we received an alarm for a structure fire with victims still inside the residence. We arrived on scene with 1 victim located outside of the house and 3 were reported still inside. We immediately began fire suppression and initiated a search for the victims simultaneously. We were able to locate all the victims and provide advanced life support to them while en route to NDER. We were also able to contain the fire, preventing spread to adjacent houses. These men and women did a tremendous job utilizing their training and skills to accomplish this assignment. At this time, I'd like to show my appreciation to each and every one of them for a job well done. I couldn't be more proud of them. I'd also like to greatly appreciate mutual aid we received from Independence Rural Fire and Cherryville Fire and Rescue. First presentation is the Unit Citation Award. If I could have Keith Kopifke, Ryan Mausberger, Alex Martin, Jonathan Johnson, Kyle Anderson, and Paul Terry come forward. The Unit Citation Award is awarded to all members of a fire rescue company or group of firefighters operating together as a company who perform meritorious service at the scene of a fire emergency. On the 10th day of April 2020, second shift received an alarm for a structure fire with victims still in the residence. Upon arrival, there was heavy fire involvement to the structure with 1 victim outside the house and 3 still inside. Second shift was able to simultaneously conduct a search and rescue and attack the fire, preventing the fire from spreading throughout the structure. This was a tremendous job accomplished by these first arriving firefighters, resulting in the saving of 2 lives. Did you want a picture of this group of the commission? Thank you, gentlemen. The next presentation is the EMS Outstanding Achievement Award. If I could have Chris Furr, Kayla Bauer, Renell Rice, Annie Belden, and David Cowan come forward, please. On the 10th day of April 2020, you were assigned to fire suppression on a structure fire with multiple victims. As victims were being rescued from the structure, you were called upon to switch from fire suppression to EMS duty to give treatment to the victims. You administered advanced life support and transported the victims to NDER. This was an outstanding job with excellent care given to the victims.
Congratulations. Kayla.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the next awards is the Award of Courage. And first, if I could have Michael Mayer come forward. Michael, for your bravery on the 10th day of April 2020, you entered a burning building through a window with high heat conditions and zero visibility due to smoke and located a trapped infant. You were able to bring the toddler to the window and deliver the victim to a waiting firefighter. In the line of duty, a firefighter's courage will be challenged. Fighting fires can be harrowing, but when the call comes in for victims trapped, saving the structure becomes secondary. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're good. All right, congratulations.
Okay, we have another award of courage. Johnny Bowles, if you'd come forward. Johnny, for your bravery on the 10th day of April 2020, you entered a burning building with high heat conditions, zero visibility due to smoke, and located a trapped adult. You were able to radio for assistance and remove the victim from the residence. In the line of duty, a firefighter's courage will be challenged. Fighting fires can be harrowing, but when the call comes in for victims trapped, saving the structure becomes secondary. Last award is the Award of Gallantry. David Rowland, if you'd come forward. This is a special award most firefighters will not have the opportunity to receive during their entire career in the fire service. David had been in the fire service 9 months at the time of this incident. For your heroism on the 10th day of April 2020, you entered a burning building through a window with high heat conditions and zero visibility due to smoke and located a trapped child. You were able to bring the child to the window and deliver the victim to a waiting firefighter. The Medal of Gallantry is awarded to a firefighter who, at great personal risk, has been instrumental in rescuing and saving another from possible death.
Well done. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for bringing this to our attention, and thank each member of the Fire EMS Department. I know you don't know what you're going to expect when you go in the morning and whether you're going to have to respond or if it's just going to be a typical casual day, but to be on the ready at any time the alarm goes and then to react and to respond when you've arrived to the scene, not knowing the conditions. It's a special breed that is able to do that and still function. For me, I'm not capable to do that, to get caught up with emotions and to see the people in need. And I really appreciate your dedication and your willingness to serve the people of Independence. And thank you. Can we all give them a round of applause? And thank you once again. The next item on the agenda is a Main Street presentation. Tabitha.
Good evening. I just wanted to give you some good news tonight. As you know, on March 27th, Independence Main Street did an incentive program called Indy Gives Back. And we awarded, if you spent so much money in local businesses, we would give you back $10 in Main Street dollars for every $50 you spent, up to $100. We rolled that out on March 27th, and within 3 weeks, we had depleted our $5,000 budget for that amount. With that, we took in 74 families, and the total receipts on those came to $40,246. So that's what was spent locally, and then plus the $5,000 that we gave back. Well, in the meantime, we got an opportunity from Union Pacific to apply for a grant for $5,000, $3,000 of that to be put into an economic development incentive. And so we thought, why not do the same thing again? And so with the help of Mr. Rothgibb, my board president, we wrote the grant and turned it in a couple weeks ago. And we were notified yesterday that we were one of the 4 communities in Kansas to be awarded that $5,000 grant. So we'll take $3,000 of that. $1,000 of it was to be used for our National Main Street dues, and then $1,000 of it was for marketing help to market this. So $3,000 of it, and then Main Street will match that, so we'll have $6,000. So we were just letting you know that within the next, we have a board meeting Monday, and we'll iron out the specifics, but we will be doing the Indy Gives Back again. So hopefully we can put $40,000 back in the community and give away $6,000 in Main Street dollars. So we're very pleased with that. So overall, it'll be $11,000 in Main Street dollars that will be spent in small businesses in and around in downtown, and then we have some West Main members also. So we're very excited to be awarded that grant.
Well, thank you for the information. That's exciting
It is.
to see corporations concerned about rural America and our economic plight. So that's really, really good to see them coming to our aid, and then the insight that you and your board have to be creative, to step out and apply for such a grant and develop a program to kind of boost hometown shopping and help during this unknown time of COVID-19. So thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well done, Tabitha.
Item C, AWOL budget. Would you like to come present? Commissioners, I think we had handouts at the beginning of the meeting.
I have some.
I would like to thank you for including me in tonight's meeting. And I just want to go over some of the points that, in the letter that I sent to the city. In the 40 years since the city and AWOL have teamed together to run the shelter, we have had 3 increases. This is the 6th time AWOL has requested an increase. And I understand, like the city, our expenses continue to rise every year, mainly in vet care, insurance, and utilities. And I know that with COVID, it's going to be harder and harder to meet budget requirements. In 1981, when I first volunteered, the city and AWOL, we were doing euthanasia at least once a week, if not twice a week, just to keep the runs open for incoming animals. I have been keeping a spreadsheet, which I think you have, since 2010. We have done over 4,096 low-cost spay and neuters. We believe that this has cut the numbers of incoming animals from 1,200 to 1,400 when we first started, down to between 500 and 700 every year that we are getting in through the shelter. We have a few but dedicated volunteers who work with the shelter, but we have a great community who help support us with donations of food and money and the city's support. And without everybody working together, AWOL could not have kept running for all these years. This past year, we have spent over $16,000 in just our adoption spay and neuters, and we've spent another $16,000 in our low-cost spay and neuters. Some people might think that we could cut back on the low-cost spay and neuters and use more of that to run the shelter, but if we did that, I guarantee you the number of animals that coming into the shelter would increase dramatically. So in the last 3 years, we've worked with the city on getting improvements done to the shelter. We've had most of the fencing replaced inside the runs. We're working with the city right now to get the top part of the fencing completed. We've had the front door repaired and a lot of minor repairs to keep the shelter up and going. And in all the years, in the 40 years that we have run the shelter, we have never failed a state inspection. We have a memorial that has come to AWOL, and the family has requested that we do something special with that. So we are looking into maybe purchasing 2 air conditioners for the dog runs. And we will probably have more figures on that as later to present to the city for approval. In closing, I just want to say that, well, before I close, I want to say that we closed AWOL in March 23rd because of the COVID, but we have managed since January through the end of April to send 92 puppies and dogs to shelters throughout Kansas. One in Unleashed, Arkoff, and Melissa Second Chance, and they are in like Mission, Kansas, Kansas City, and La Harpe, Kansas. So we have been able to transfer a lot of dogs out of the shelter and help them find new loving homes. So, like I said in the letter, Mahatma Gandhi said, "The greatness of a nation can be judged by the way its animals are treated." And I think this community should be proud of the way we treat our animals that come into the shelter. The city and AWOL have worked hard to find loving homes, and I think the city should be proud of all that we've accomplished. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, just didn't get a chance to read the letter ahead of time, so just scanned it real quick. So what your request is for a $250 a month increase
That's correct.
or a $5,000 annual increase in the budget from the city.
It's not an increase. We've always had the 5,000 for
Oh.
well, we've always had 5,000 for the maintenance and everything. The 2,500 would be, well, not quite 3,000 a year, I think, wouldn't it be?
Right, 3,000, yeah, additional for the
Right.
increased cost of, that would be insurance and some other expenses, that medical services, is that what I
Right,
understand?
yeah. On top of the 32,000 we spent for the spays and neuters, we've spent another 8,000 in vet care for euthanasia and other things that have come up through the shelter.
So last year, Kelly, I think it was last year, the budget was presented from AWOL. I vaguely remember a discussion about the maintenance.
Right.
Was
Yeah,
that,
they have the maintenance budget, and they've been utilized it pretty much last year, and then we're working on some projects with them this year. We did some of the 2 fencing projects last year, I believe, and then we're doing the 3rd piece of that's out for bid right now.
It's been 3 years since we've been here and requesting, and in that time, we've got a lot accomplished in the shelter.
And
So-
then Rick goes out there also if they have minor things,
Right.
Rick Barnes, and he's went out there and done some minor maintenance for
Right.
them.
so how much are we funding in addition to the $5,000?
I would have to pull that up. I didn't have it
Okay,
down on my list, but I will get that information to you.
okay. Well, why don't we do this? Commissioners, we've heard, we got the letter. Do you think we should, my thought is to do no action tonight, but have Kelly and Lacey work on a presentation for us on what the annual funding is and how this would affect our upcoming budget, and then we can reconsider it at a later date.
I agree with that.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay, will that be okay
That's
with you?
fine, that's fine. And I
Okay.
appreciate your support, so.
Thank you.
for
And
your time.
Kelly, do you want to let them know when we schedule it back on the agenda? So
Yeah.
if you want to come to that review and discussion at that time?
Okay, all right, I can do that.
Okay.
All right, that works.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the last item under presentations is the 2019 year-end report. Kelly?
I only have 50-some slides. That's all right, right?
That's all right.
So basically, if you have any questions, I printed copies for you, and I also had this in the packet. So if you have any questions on any particular department, we can do that. I was just going to kind of buzz through. There's the AWOL slide, by the way,
Yeah.
of their stats, as they just talked.
I would think as you go through the slides, if you want to recap or point something out, highlight, Give us kind of your view of the highlight events, of accomplishments for the year.
Okay, well, fuel cells, 648,000, but that is, that's just what was generated from those sales. That's not after the expenses, so that's just total amount generated. AWOL, and you have the statistics in front of you too, so there's that one. Building, the two main projects we had were the DCF office, and then we also had that apartment on 10th Street that was pretty majorly rehabbed. Finance, Lacey's department. This is an overview of that. It shows revenue in different areas. And licenses. Memorial Hall, we had quite a few activities. Just note that next year that will be down considerably because we haven't had any activities for a little while, so just to note that. And they collected over $100,000 in court fines last year. Park and Zoo, they always have a ton of projects, and I know Barb's here. I don't know if she has anything to add on that, but there's an overview on that one. Fire and EMS had 2,967 medical calls, and their average response time was 4 minutes and so can't be 66 seconds. Maybe it's 66 of 100th. Then they got, the big thing last year is they got their new truck. And then police totaled 2,278 incident and crime reports. And just some more of that. Street department, over 1,000 piles of brush. Over 200 nuisance lots mowed. And this is the map for the 2019 resurfacing, and you can see them in green. And sanitation picked up over 6,000 tons of trash. And we collected over 159,000 pounds of recycling. Website had over 100,000 visitors. Planning and zoning had a very busy year. We had 5 parcels rezoned, 3 conditional use permits, 4 text amendments, and the Board of Variance approved 4 variances. Water sewer produced over 500 million gallons of drinking water. And what goes in must go out, over 488 million gallons of wastewater treated. And just some highlights on administration. You can see there we've got some ADA projects, communications, things that we improved, working the strategic plan. We had several staff members and commissioners participate in First Fridays. And this is the outcome we had last year from our planning retreat. I know we've already had one this year, so but this is the one from April 2019. Focused on streets and ADA, help for new business recruitment and retention, quality of life maintenance and improvement, and other, which included the beautification to downtown, wayfinding, and the apparatus replacement. And just some highlights from Love Independence Day on what some of the departments did. And we had 2 retirements in 2019, Jim Brickens with 18 years and Pat Pomeroy 6 years, and Tammy Freeman also moved on. She was close to retirement. She'd been here 20-some years, but she moved on just a year or so before she was eligible. And Kids Camp, they had a ton of kids. I participated in that and took a lot of photos during the day. It was very well attended. And the City Hall walkthrough, those are just a few photos of that. And we had the great basement flood. So there's some photos of that, and the Veterans Day Parade. Also, the Economic Development Board was created, and that's a photo of the people on that. And we had some staff members participate on Celebrate Independence, and actually Lacey emceed that. We had an active shooter drill, which was a lot of fun because I got to follow them around and take those pictures. And an awards banquet. And those are the service awards we gave out in 2019 for anywhere from 5 to 40 years of service. And that's it.
A busy year as usual.
Yeah, it
We got a lot
was.
accomplished. Any questions, commissioners? Commissioner Susie?
No.
Commissioner Hayes?
I have none at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So we've had no modifications, so at this time I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Items for commission action. Item A, consider scheduling a special meeting on June 23rd, 2020 at 9 a.m. to further refine proposed projects for the special use sales tax. I think this was what we had discussed at our work session, that we would allow the information to be accumulated and give us time to look at it, then meet at a later date to do the next step of refining. I know in our RCA, Kelly, you'd recommended having Chuck assist and facilitate the second part. I don't know, would it be beneficial for us to meet as a group and discuss the items and arrange and sort and organize, and then go with Chuck to facilitate? Commissioners, which you ready?
It was my impression that that was the process that Chuck was going to facilitate for
Okay.
us.
Commissioner?
That's how I understood.
Okay.
also.
Any questions about the date? Are we
No,
good with the 23rd?
I'm available at that date and time.
I'm good also.
Okay.
And Chuck, I've confirmed that he's available.
And he is available?
Yeah, he may be on the phone, I'm not sure.
Are you on the phone, Chuck?
I am.
Are you available the 23rd?
I am available on the 23rd.
Okay. So let's put it on our calendars and look forward to phase 2 or step 2. Okay.
That is the same, doing that without recording, correct? Just like we did the first one?
Just like before, yeah.
Okay.
So do I have a motion?
I move to schedule a special meeting on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 at 9 a.m. to further refine proposed projects for the special use sales tax renewal.
Second?
Here we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Ian, are you on the phone?
Yes.
And is Vance or just you with us tonight?
It's just me tonight.
Okay. Item B is consider change orders 8 and 9 for the City Hall project. I think I slipped up that we had talked earlier that this item was going to be removed. There needs to be some modifications. Am I correct, Ian?
Yes, I'll need to modify the totals based on the revised number 8 I got this morning with further breakout on the contractor's bond amount.
Okay. So I should have suggested that that be removed when we did the additions. So we'll just table item B and move to item C. Consider a proposal from Trainer HL to develop concept design options for the 1916 City Hall and a public safety center.
Well, this is the proposal that we had presented back in, I believe it was early March to the commission, which would cover our time for doing some additional programming and preliminary plans for just the concept of having all the administrative city functions and the police department and the historic 1916 City Hall, and then the fire and EMS department at the current temporary apparatus bay with an addition onto that building. So what we would be providing is similar to what we provided in August last year with our initial program options. We'd have a site plan, a floor plan, and then a narrative describing the overall scope for architectural, structural, mechanical, all of our consultants, and then an updated estimate of probable construction and overall project costs. We would update the estimates that we had in August last year for you.
And this is kind of tied to item D, the next item of scheduling a meeting. To go with that, we do need the agreement. There's some things we need to discuss before they go into design of space modifications and get a look at what we've talked initially in the last presentation. There was an addition to the south planned, and the elevation was significant enough that it had impact. Kelly brought to my attention that the windows were going in. We considered putting those off until we knew what the space requirement would be, but we felt that impact was too detrimental to the building and that the addition shouldn't modify the south facade of the building. You know what, some of the things that we've seen as we've gone through the COVID pandemic and the impact it has on access to City Hall, I think it would be good, to proceed with the preliminary and have a discussion that we look at space utilization again to redefine what's actually necessary. But in order to go forward with item D, we need to look that we have a contract with the firm to proceed with a actual preliminary plan, discussing setting some parameters such as cost and other situations that would affect the overall project fees. Commissioners, Commissioner Yasusi, you have any questions for Ian or any comment?
The comments that you've made, there's been some changes, as you mentioned, with COVID-19 and other things that we need to reevaluate as far as spacing and design, and there's just a lot of unanswered questions that have come up since all this has happened. Mm-hmm. We really need to go through and discuss that.
Commissioner Hayes?
If I recall correctly, this is an agreement for about $12,000 of services. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And this is just in preparation for the meeting on June the 30th that we have planned to discuss the other parameters, including cost.
The $12,000 would actually include design of the space after our meeting the 23rd.
After the meeting on the 23rd. So a total expenditure of the $12,000 would not be prior to June the 30th, but would include June the 30th and any preparation of drawings following June the 30th. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, that would be correct.
Okay, that clears up my question with regard to what the money was for in this particular motion.
Yeah, we actually have two meetings with the city commission included in that 12,000. So we anticipated there'd be some additional meetings with you once we develop the concept.
And we did talk about maybe some teleconferencing if we needed to in between the actual final presentations. What we're looking at it at the end of the services being provided for $12,750, it would be the completion of a preliminary design phase on phase 2, City Hall. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So typically, we would go preliminary design, design development, and construction drawing. So this is the initial phase that starts moving forward with phase 2.
Correct. Yeah, we would move from this phase into schematic design where we would start to develop the plans more accurately, start nailing dimensions down on the different spaces once we have this concept in hand.
So the floor plan that you will present at the end of this phase will be a room layout, not just a bubble
Correct.
diagram. Okay. Any further questions, commissioners?
No, I'm looking forward to that conversation on the 30th, and so if this is what's needed to proceed, then I have no further questions.
Okay. Come on.
I'm good, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then I will entertain a motion.
Okay, now, wait a minute, I do have one question here. We're going to reference this all back to the 30th of June, right?
Right.
Okay. I move to schedule a special meeting on
Oh,
June.
no.
Sorry.
So I'm sorry, we're at item C.
Okay. Okay, the motion is move to approve the proposal from Trainer HL to develop concept design options for 1916 City Hall and a public safety center. That is a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is consider scheduling a special meeting on June 30th, 2020 at 9 a.m. to discuss Phase 2 for the 1916 City Hall building. So at this meeting, it's really the kickoff for the previous fee that we discussed. We'd be discussing the space, our concerns. I know earlier, Dean, right after we finished the initial study, you had mentioned some good points about changing technology, changing methods, and I think we're seeing some of that with the COVID-19 and how that would affect our design, that we need to be basically looking in the future methods, not staying as we are. So this meeting kind of sets that preliminary direction for the design and the concept development of Phase 2. I think it'll be a really productive session that we've had a lot of talk. We've seen a lot of things change in the last 3 months that now we have the opportunity to take forward and look at a new picture for our city offices in a new direction too. So any questions? Is any conflicts with the 30th?
I am available on that day and at that time.
I'm good also, Mayor.
And for this meeting, Ian, you'll be in attendance, Vance, and will Andy also be present?
Yes, I was able to confirm today that Andy would be available as well. So it'll be all three of us.
Okay, good. Okay. Commissioners, any questions?
I'm good.
I'm good.
No further questions, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move to schedule a special meeting on June 30th, 2020 at 9 a.m. to discuss Phase 2 for 1916 City Hall and other related discussion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay. Item E, consider awarding bids for construction of project 75-63-U-2356-01, mill and overlay of US 75-160 near the Peter Pan intersection. Boy, with that number, I knew right where we were. Sean, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On June 4th, the city received bids for this project, which is the asphalt mill and overlay near the Peter Pan and Main Street intersection. We advertised at plan rooms and sent to several contractors we knew were interested. There were 2 plan holders, Heckert Construction and Cornejo Construction. The only bid that was received was from Heckert Construction from Pittsburgh, Kansas, in the amount of $375,773. That's a little bit over our estimate, and the KDOT maximum amount for the award or for the project, the grant the city has received is for $300,000. So that would leave $75,773 that would be city match for this project.
Do you recall what the estimate was?
Our estimate was a little over the 300,000. I believe it was 340,000. The reviewing the bid, the main difference was in the milling, and according to Heckert plans to use Dustrol for milling, who does most of the milling in the area, and they have a very heavy workload this year. Dustrol does, so I believe that was just the main reason for the additional cost. So.
With oil prices down, I would have expected a little better price there. But
Yeah, it seems to be a long time before it hits the asphalt unit price when the oil drops.
Well, what's the, if we approve the contract, what kind of schedule do we have?
I asked Pete Kimmeter with Heckert that same question. They're ready to go very quickly, but it's a little dependent on Dustrol to do the milling first. So I expect it will be late July or August before they get started on the project due to the milling.
And Sean, what's the timeline for completion on that?
I believe it's 30 days. It's a pretty quick project. There's no concrete. It's all milling and asphalt.
Any questions, Commissioner Hicks?
This is for the span from Peter Pan west to the city limits. Is that where that?
Correct. There is officially the east end of the project is a couple hundred feet east of Peter Pan. You can see a joint in the pavement where it's been overlaid before. So it starts there. As you move west, it goes through the Peter Pan intersection and then on to the city limits.
Is that the joint that creates a speed bump?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So that'll be milled out and tapered in better than it is now.
We had talked earlier about some other issues with the pavement, and you mentioned it could have been within the mixed design. Is that possible what caused that bump at that transition point, or is there a chance that in time that bump will come back?
Yeah, I think it was from that construction of the last overlay that was in that area. I think that
Okay.
it'll be greatly improved by this project. And yes, we think the type of mix that was used at the time was led to some of the problems with shoving and rutting that you see in that stretch of the road now. So the project will be milling out 4 inches of that, and then we'll be placing 3 inches back. So we're taking out quite a bit of asphalt and replacing it for that stretch. A lot more than normal. Normally, we would just do 1.5 inch mill and overlay, but because of those structural issues, we're going deeper and replacing more.
Okay.
On the north side of the road, on the westbound lanes during rain, there's some ponding. Is this going to help with that at all?
It will. I believe in the location you're talking about, some of that ponding is because of the severe rutting of the asphalt. And that, again, that's due, in our opinion, to the mix design that was used back when it was placed. So when we mill that out, it'll remove all that rutting, and it'll be a continuous cross-section, continuous slope from the center of the road to the gutter, so you won't have that rut just retaining that water.
Good.
You might explain, I had a similar question and was visiting with Sean this afternoon to understand how that worked and with the 4-inch milling. Do you mind explaining to the commissioners how that's determined?
So the rutting, which is a fairly common problem with certain asphalt mixes, it goes down and then at the edges pushes up. It flows, and usually that's caused by too much asphaltic cement in the mix combined with maybe a small aggregate in the mix. So it flows very easily, especially in hot weather. And if there's a lot of turning movements like you see in that intersection, you can see where it's shoved and rutted and extremely bumpy. So the better mixes, more modern mixes, there's a lot of ways to help combat that, but the type of oil used we're basically going to mill out the 4 inches, and then we're going to place 2 inches of a very large aggregate with a heavy oil, and it's very strong, but it's also a rough ride. So then on the upper 1 inch, it's going to have a riding surface of a fine aggregate and a slightly different oil that makes the ride much, much smoother. So that's a pretty common method now to do with asphalt pavement when you have at least 4 inches to work with to help combat those issues.
And the 4 inches is measured from the gutter at the edge down.
Yes.
So it will.
Yes, we felt
all
that
that.
4 inches would take out all of those ruts, which that's a pretty significant rut if you have to go 4 inches, but take out all that rutting and basically start on a reasonable base to build it back up with a uniform cross-section.
Okay. Any more questions, Commissioner Yususi?
So we're looking at, when it's completed, better drainage and a smoother ride and the end of the speed bump,
Yes, yes.
or at least.
And like we did, if you recall, our original contract was to examine if white topping was an alternate there.
Right.
We did core the pavement. There isn't enough asphalt there to do a concrete white topping at the depth we were comfortable with. So at some point in the future, that intersection could be a candidate to do a full depth replacement of concrete, but this should buy several years of good road and a decent intersection. So at some point in the future, the city may want to apply for a KDOT funded project just for that intersection. But again, this is several hundred feet longer than just the intersection.
The $300,000 from the state of Kansas is a time-sensitive or time-limited offer, right? And so
Correct.
if we do not respond within that time limit, it would go away, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Many of the capital projects that we had on tap for the rest of this year have been put on hold because of the uncertainty from COVID-19, but many of them also are not, do not have time-limited matching funds like this project does. So I understand the impetus to move ahead on this.
Any further questions from the commission?
I'm good.
I'm good, Mayor.
Then I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion that we move to authorize the mayor to award the bid to Heckert Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $375,773 for the mill and overlay of US 75-160 near the Peter Pan intersection, contingent on KDOT approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item F, consider contract for engineering services for a pavement restoration project on West Main from 8th to 10th Street. Okay, Sean?
Yes, the city has received a KDOT grant for a maximum of $1 million to do full depth replacement of pavement from 8th Street to between 9th and 10th Street. And also the sidewalk will be replaced in those areas with the curb and gutter and the storm sewer. Similar to Commissioner Hayes' question earlier, this project is scheduled to let by KDOT next year, so it's a 2021 project. So it's time to start the engineering on that, to go through the full KDOT review. It typically can take 17 months to get through that process, but we're on about the right time frame to take about a year to do that if the design starts today. So we've offered the contract for review for the city to do the design portion of the contract, and based on previous discussions with the city, we'll also include going all the way to 10th Street, which would be just city funds for that last half block. And Kelly has summarized it on the slide that's between you, or before you, how much is KDOT funded, how much would be city share for that entire project. For the design in this budget, we had about $160,000 allotted, and our contract's for $140,000, so it's slightly less than what we had in the budget.
Will the project include closing entrances at the corner of 10th and Main to the abandoned convenience store?
Yes, that portion is all city project, so it's non-participatory from KDOT, so it's really at your direction what you would like for us to do. That would be a wise decision on our part, and if you're asking us for a recommendation, we would recommend closing that. It's just too close to the intersection. It's
Definitely,
dangerous. Yeah.
with the amount of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
For the additional cost for that half a block approximately, I see, is that $380,000 construction to complete?
$300,000 for construction, and then in this estimate there's $35,000 for design and $45,000 for inspection, for a total of $380,000.
This would be for Kelly, since we're not getting a grant to complete that, or funds to construct that remaining portion, that's from economic development and transportation?
Yeah, primarily, but I talked to Lacey today, and she wanted to modify that for the entire project. It's also going to be part of special use sales tax and some from the street projects, and she was going to explain that for you.
Okay, thank you.
So we can fund part of this. I don't have the exact amount with me tonight, but that Fund 92, which is bond proceeds from a street bond, has remaining funds left over, and I would suggest we use that as a filler for this project.
Okay. Just with, we're we talked about putting a hold on capital projects, but with this project where we got the grant with KDOT, it's really critical that we maintain the funds to complete the whole lane.
My suggestion
So-
would be to move forward,
yeah.
yes.
So this way we can fund it without suffering from any other location right now, but, okay.
Yes, I mean, the cash that we have sitting in that fund is tied to a bond. It can't be used for anything other than street projects.
Okay, okay, good. Well, that's good that we had that remaining in the fund, that for, that portion is so critical too. Okay, Commissioner Hayes, do you have any
The
questions?
fund number that you were saying was Fund 92.
Correct.
And that's money that can only be used for
Street
street
projects.
projects.
There will be some additional documentation. I'll have to call bond counsel, and they'll have to add it to the bond, and we'll bring it back for formal approval.
That money is idle then otherwise. It is not encumbered or in any other way committed, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So the cost for water line replacement along that route, is that covered by the KDOT grant also?
No, it is in this budget, but it is a non-participating cost. But it's included in the construction dollars.
So the water line replacement would come from the Water Sewer Industrial Fund?
It could. I haven't seen the detail breakout, but
I don't recall the overall estimate, but I think it's around $100,000 for water line relocation.
Storm drainage, though, is included, isn't
Yes.
it? Okay. Okay. Commissioner Eususi?
I think we need to move forward on that. They've already made some concrete repairs on that stretch, and I know the base is gone in it, so it's something we just can't sit on. And that $1 million grant, we don't see a lot of those come our way. So whatever we need to do to find the resources to move forward on this project, we need to. So I don't have any further questions.
Commissioner Hayes?
I'm good.
It sounds like we've got our funding source covered and everything. So then if there's no further questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with Trans Systems for engineering services for a pavement restoration project on West Main from 8th to 10th.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. And we were going to move from reports item G, an update on the projects with Trans Systems. So, Sean, would you like to?
Yes. We have assisted the city in putting together some of the preliminary information for the wastewater loan that's been turned in, and I contacted the state, and just with COVID, it's been a little slow to get the response, but we expect to get a review information back next week, so that's moving forward. The total loan amount is $3.1 million, and it's summarized in the slide that Kelly prepared, but it's Basin 5 for around $900,000 and Lakeview Lift Station for around $490,000. Those have both been designed previously. And then there is just a $1.7 million designated for I&I abatement and overflow reduction, and there's a couple of projects this city staff has identified that could be used for floodproofing of Wald or the First and Hill sanitary sewer upgrades. These funds could be used as a match for a CDBG grant that is $700,000. We discussed, the city staff discussed that with the Regional Planning Commission. So that's kind of on our plate. Our target is to get that CDBG application in. And the due date, was it October? I believe it's October.
This one I thought it was September.
Okay, it's September or October, and the first step is to go to a kayak meeting in Topeka, but I believe those will be a virtual meeting. And that kayak stands for Kansas Interagency Review Council, and it's just the first step in applying for the block grant. And the city qualifies now citywide that's 51% LMI, which means the project can be anywhere in the city. So it can be any of these projects that's on the list. So.
So if we can use it for matching funds to a grant, we could get a lot more mileage out of our money. So now's the time to start looking for all the grants available for wastewater. This is just wastewater improvement, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe, I know in the last increase, I believe the increase included enough for debt service on this loan. I believe that was the intent. So it should be in place to do the revenue should be in place for the loan. And again, I think last time we didn't end up using all of the loan funds. It's up to the commission what projects you do with that money. You don't have to use the full $3.1 million.
Okay.
So. The next project is the KDOT cost share. The application for West Maple Street went in May, and it's currently being reviewed by KDOT. And we expect to hear back fairly quickly. The KDOT access management application, this is still hanging out there for the alley south of Cypress, parallel to Highway 75. Those applications just stay in the system and get rated. So if you want to leave it in place, that's fine, or if you want to remove it, it's totally up to you. Peter Pan.
Well, on the alley, I don't know if we talked about it with you or just in one of our work sessions, that if the city decides to replace the alley out of funds, then we don't have to comply with access management specs, do we?
No,
Okay.
you can do whatever you want with the alley. Correct.
So if we want to look at with the special use sales tax, including that portion of alley in it, we could fund without any worry of KDOT.
Yeah,
review.
you don't have to do that to KDOT standards. That's
Okay.
just city standards.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. The next slide is Peter Pan. It's they have the last two items they were to complete on this last phase. The economic development phase was striping and sodding, which they have done. We are working on resolving a drainage issue on one of the properties, and we'll have drawings and some methodology to discuss with the city staff, hopefully next week. There are two other applications in for KDOT for similar programs. The first one is Chestnut from near Penn Avenue to 9th Street, and that is a 2-inch mill and overlay. And you can see Kelly has summarized the costs if the city were awarded that project. And the second one is Penn Avenue from Morningside Drive to the north city limits. It is also summarized. We should hear back within the next month or two on those. Those programs from KDOT are still fully funded. Those refer to LPA programs, and KDOT is still fully funding those programs. So. Then on this last slide, Whiskey Creek, we're working on a scope of work for channel clearing from Cottonwood to Cherry that will fit within a nationwide permit. There's certain things you can do that's very easy to do as long as you stay within the parameters of a nationwide permit from the Corps of Engineers, which allows you to do maintenance type activity. If you get outside that, then they require a full-blown set of plans and all kinds of engineering. So we're trying to avoid staying out of that area and just doing more of a maintenance type clearing on Whiskey Creek. The ADA project's under construction. They're finishing up near the church on Irving. And then you can see where we anticipate them going after they complete the church. I'll be glad to answer any other questions.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioner?
I have none.
John, that from Morningside to the city limits on North Penn, when is that scheduled? Is that 2022 or 3?
Well, we should hear if you get the grant within the next month or so, and then I would have to check, but I think that one's a 2023 project, but I will have to check.
It hasn't been awarded yet.
Okay,
It's one we're waiting on.
waiting to hear. And we should hear within,
I would, any time really, I would
Anytime?
expect within the next month or so.
okay. And the work on the Whiskey Creek, because we had previously talked about doing some work from Sycamore, the tiling, that drain that crosses under Sycamore Street.
Yeah, the city has issued an RFQ for engineering services. There's an EDA grant available, possibly available for that project, but to get some fully funded for engineering, you have to procure the engineer first, so the city's going through that process.
Okay, all right, thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Next item, item G, consider an ordinance authorizing a parcel split in Block 1 of Dawsville Addition due to floodplain restrictions. Kelly?
Mayor, this is just finishing up, getting this legally split into two pieces. You can see where the yellow line here is there. It shows approximately where the lot would be split, which gets it out of the floodplain, so that lot could be utilized for any future development.
Any questions since our last discussion?
I'm good.
I'm good.
If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we move to adopt an ordinance authorizing a partial split in Block 1 of Dawsville Addition due to floodplain restrictions.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Item H, consider authorizing the mayor to sign a grant agreement with Kansas Department of Commerce to receive CDBG-CV funds made available through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economic Securities Act, CARES Act, for grants to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus. Lacey?
Thank you, Mayor. This is just the formal acceptance of the grant that we previously announced we were awarded. It consists of $132,000 in funds to be granted to local businesses that are retaining employees that meet LMI thresholds, so to retain low to moderate income employees. And then $35,000 of the funds received are to go to local meal programs such as the food bank or things like that.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners?
I'm good.
I'm good, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign grant agreement number 20-CV-033 and any related documents, and for city staff to administer the grant program, working in conjunction with MCAC and the Economic Development Advisory Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
And Mr. Mayor, may I give a little bit more information on our next steps and process in regards to this grant?
No. Sure, go ahead.
People might find it helpful. We are working on a daily basis with Tricia Purden from Montgomery County Action Council. She's been so helpful in this process. Along with the city of Coffeyville, we collectively decided that since all three organizations were awarded these funds, that we would, to make it easiest for our citizens and business owners, we would present a united front and all have the same application online for everyone in the county. So Tricia has worked very hard on creating that, and we plan to make it live on June 24th, 2020. Between now and the 24th, we're going to take that time to advertise for the grant, get our website up and going, get frequently asked questions answered, and just take calls so that everyone is prepared and has notice before that application goes live. And then tentatively, we plan on having the applications due on July 19th, 2020. That's a Sunday at midnight or 11:59 p.m. And then on the 20th through, I think Thursday is the 23rd, we would review the applications and present it to the commission for final approval, hopefully at that meeting on the 23rd.
Good. I think that makes a lot of sense, working together to get a unified, consistent approach. It'd be much more efficient, and
It's already complicated enough.
that's right. Yeah, keep it simple.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well, if anyone is looking for information on the grant right now, we should steer them to Montgomery County Action Council's webpage. Has all of the information on their site as well. And as soon as I can, I'll get a link to that put up on our website as well. But she's already got it up and running.
Do the businesses that apply have to have 51% of their employees low, moderate income?
The businesses apply have to have of the jobs retained. So if they were not to receive these fundings, the pool of jobs that would be at risk of not having a job anymore, those at-risk jobs need to meet the LMI requirements.
Okay. Sounds like a good program to hopefully help our business industry.
Yes.
So, okay.
Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lacey.
Thanks. Next item I, which was an extra item, consider authorizing a 4-Pause Fun Day on July 11th of 2020. Barb?
Yes, thank you so much for adding this on. I appreciate it. At last Monday's 4-Pause meeting, they were scratching their head, what can we do at the park and zoo to make up for the lack of having park opening? And they came up with a fun day, and 4-Pause would like to pay for the kids, as people to ride the train and the carousel and the golf, and so then we added on a movie night. We'd like to do that and just kind of make a fun day and make up a little bit that we can for not having park opening.
Mm-hmm.
The things that they also would like to do is have food vendors along the oval, same concept as we had at park opening. And then we would like to close the oval from just north of Wells Drive and then around just south of the playground and make it safer. And the reason we're doing that, we want to leave access to the people that live on Wells Drive, but yet make it safer that people aren't going around the oval, especially during the movie time. So we're just asking the permission to do that on July 11th.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners?
I have none.
Good. Sounds like a good idea.
Great. If there's no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion that we move to approve the request for a 4PAWS Fun Days on July 11th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. The next item is reports. Item A, a report on Central Business District Commercial Building Grant.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Aye.
I'm going to do just a quick history of this, just with Dean, may not know the history of it, so I've got some dates and things to go through real quick. In 2014, 2015, multiple downtown buildings had bricks and cornices falling off, and a few buildings had walls that were in danger of collapsing. The City Commission approved Ordinance 4218, signed March 17th, 2016, that would go into effect January 1st of 2017, establishing a minimum standard for the commercial properties in the Central Business District. With the requirements set forth with the minimum maintenance standards, the Commission chose to establish a grant to assist the downtown building owners with making needed repairs. The initial funding was for $100,000 to be funded from the Economic Development Funds. 4 meetings were held with the downtown business owners where they were invited to provide input on how the grant should be structured. With the downtown building owners' input, the Commission on October 13th, 2016 established the Central Business District Commercial Building Grant. Say that 3 times quick. To date, 11 grant applications have been received for 16 building addresses. 5 grants have been closed, with 1 grant in process. The remaining 5 applicants either withdrew their applications or failed to provide the necessary documentation. Of the $100,000 that was established, you can see that we have to date expended $51,960.86. We have committed with the grant in process. And when I say committed, it means that's what they've asked for. It doesn't necessarily mean what they're entitled to. They'll have to show proof of expenses on those eligible expenses to be reimbursed. But in their grant application, they had a total of $13,365. So we commit that until we get those bills. And so we currently have available $34,674.14. I think what's of interest with this 5 grants that have been closed, over $200,000 of improvements have been made into our downtown buildings. That's a great investment for our historical buildings. 3 of the 5 that have been closed, that $200,000 is only on eligible expenses. There's more investment that was made out of 3 other projects because they did more than what was the eligible expenses. I don't have those figures because that's not part of the grant. But I think that that is awesome that we have that much investment in our downtown historical buildings. Of the projects that have been completed, the work that's been done has been roof replacement, window and exterior door replacement, rebuilding of exterior walls, tuck pointing, and fascia repairs. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioners?
Is this, the reimbursement rate, is that of eligible expenses, is it 25%?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what the committee wanted. They chose the 25% reimbursement of eligible expenses.
So for instance, like the bottom one on the 223 West Main, is that 45 or 48? I'm trying to read with glasses, 45,000? So his investment was actually roughly 180,000 then?
Correct.
Of
eligible
eligible
expenses.
And then we awarded 25% of that, of eligible expenses back
Correct.
toward him, okay?
And he is one of the projects that spent more than the eligible expenses.
Right. Okay.
In addition to the projects that you've already seen, do you have an estimate of remaining work that was under consideration when we established the building grant fund? And was there a rationale behind $100,000 being the total grant monies? Was that based on knowing that there were $400,000 worth of projects that needed to be accomplished in order to bring these buildings into compliance with the ordinance?
There was not a evaluation per se of the buildings downtown with a price tag to what the expectations were. We did offer, the city had an engineer who came in, and those businesses that wished to have that engineer walk through their building, he walked through and verbally gave them information, or they could pay him directly for a report. And we had several businesses. I don't have the numbers on that. I know that, I think we went into 17 or 18 buildings. I think there was a handful that asked or paid for a report to have in hand. For the most part, the findings that the buildings that I accompanied him, he gave them consideration of items that you need to address now. Some were simple, some were more drastic. One that, of course, was more drastic was the 223 West Main. Also, where the old dollar store. Those were two that of severe concern. Others, he went through and gave them simple fixes that they could do. Some property owners have done that, some on their own dime. Some of them did apply for the grant and then chose for whatever reason to withdraw on that. But I don't have a financial figure for that. Originally, when the commission did this, and Leonard, you may remember, they said $100,000, and because of setting up the minimum maintenance standard, the commission wanted to provide funds because we had so many buildings that were having such issues downtown. So originally, it was set $100,000 and an additional $100,000. But as you can see to date, we've not needed that additional $100,000. And to my knowledge, this is carried over year to year. So it's not new money, it's just existing.
And I think the timing was really close to when, within a short period of time, two buildings suffered major structural concerns, and then shortly after this program.
Correct. We had two
Came in.
buildings downtown that completely had to rebuild some walls.
You had to vacate. So, in the program, I didn't see that it established a condition that had to exist before the building would be eligible for funds. Example, total deterioration of roof or major, like you said, the buildings that were suffering structural issues of walls near collapse. So is it available if somebody, their windows are in good condition, but they just want to take advantage of the program and replace them? Is that?
They would be available for that. They would, yeah, because that was one of the things that the group, the downtown businesses, that was one of the things that if they wanted to, replace old windows with more energy efficient repair around the windows, they wanted to be able to. And so there was not a caveat set up in the grant to measure the severity of the need.
Yeah, that's what I looked at it again, and I didn't think we had talked about it, but I wanted to make sure I hadn't overlooked that. There's been some cases where windows have been replaced, and, you know, anytime you can go with a new modern window and improve the R value over opposed to a purist preservationist that says if you've got the float glass, it's got to stay. You got to stay with the wood sash. You got to, you know, where now you go with clad windows or even some nice heavy-duty vinyl windows, and you're eliminating all your exterior maintenance. So that would be beneficial for a building owner to take advantage of the program in that case.
And I believe we have had that. I know one of the caveats is they have to get approval through the Historical Preservation Commission to approve what they're going to do. And I know that the preservation, both the state and local, have worked with them on the types of windows, because the windows is one of the big tricky.
Right.
And so they have worked with them, and they have approved a design that meets that requirement.
To kind of maintain the visual characteristic, but allows to go with a modern window.
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions, commissioners?
I just comment that this works hand in hand with the revitalization district 2, so you can apply for both, correct?
Yes, you can. And one.
Yeah, go ahead.
And one of the other caveats that you can is the Independence Housing Authority has the Upper Story Grant Program. And so they all work hand in hand together to where one of the concerns with making improvements is being concerned with your increased taxes. So the revitalization, especially when you go back in and improve the apartments upstairs, it's been vacant, it's not been on the tax roll. I mean, I can tell you I worked with a couple of different buildings that did go in and make repairs, did revitalize their upper stories, and the property taxes they were hit with was very significant. So having that revitalization in that area is very important to the program as well.
When we think about economic development of Independence, this portion of the foundation that we've laid so far is really, I think, instructive, because you can see what it's done, who participates, and how it benefits the community. And this helps us then programmatically plan for what's the next logical step in this process. So thanks for sharing the information.
Sure, thank you for the opportunity. Any other questions?
I'm good. Thank you, April.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item B, update on the budget process.
I don't have much of an update other than I'm working on it.
Okay.
Do you all have any questions? I don't think our next meeting is scheduled yet. The budget schedule that I gave previously had a date range. So sometime around July 15th would be our next potential meeting to go over the budget, a
Right.
draft of the budget.
I don't have any questions, commissioners.
No, I'm good.
I'm good, Lacey.
Okay.
Thank you, Lacey.
Yep.
Item C, 223 West Main Street update.
Mayor, we continue to work. Some information has been provided to us, but it still is not what has been requested, and we just continue to try to work through the process.
The current occupants of the building are in no danger at this point in time of interruption in service or interruption in business operations?
They are in no danger as far as we're concerned.
The permit, has that been extended?
Yes, it was re-extended for 6 months.
Another 6 months, okay. So that puts it till when?
I think August,
August?
if I
Okay.
remember correctly.
Okay. So the ball's still in Mr. Morrison's court, so we're
Yeah.
still waiting for him.
we're still waiting for him to respond to our questions.
Okay.
Any further questions?
I'm good.
Thank you, David. Item D, Neighborhood Revitalization Plan Update.
I just want to report to you that we did get this back from the Attorney General's that approved it. It was filed with the Register of Deeds on June 1st, and it has been filed by the Secretary of State, so it is done.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
So the effective date is,
Actually, the effective date is, Jeff suggested we use the last entity approved it, which was March 9th, the last of the taxing entities. We had left that blank originally because we thought it would be when the Attorney General approved it, but the Attorney General wanted it filled in, so we used the March 9th date, which is when the college approved it. They were the last group to approve.
and you did tell me yesterday that we have a new business that is taking advantage.
Yeah, O'Reilly's, I sent them the information because they will qualify, and they're going to fill that out and submit that application for their project.
Okay, good. Item E, 2020 census update.
Well, we were tied with Cherryville, but now they're beating us. 58.5%, and we're at 58.3. It's pretty close, but we still need to get people to fill out their census.
Are we still advertising or promoting the census in some way in the media?
Well, we haven't ran actual ads. I know the media did some of that for us. I can reach out to them again, but Joanne's going to work on updating some messaging so we can get some more flashes out there and things like that. So we are working on it. It's just, I think with everything going on, that people have other things on their minds right now, so.
Okay, any questions? If not, we'll go on. The city board minutes. Any questions concerning any of those?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay, then next is city manager comment.
I'd like Terry to give an update on the pool.
Well, it has water in it. We did have an issue with one of the strainers broke, and I have a replacement coming. We're also making repairs to it to see if we can get the pool open on time. It's one of those things with the plastic piping and being 18 years old, it gets brittle. So we're starting to run into that issue with brittle pipe.
Is the strainer in the pump room or is it out on the pool?
It's in the pump room, right on the suction side of each pump.
Okay.
There's a lint and hair strainer that catches debris. And the flange on it broke, so
Yeah.
we're diligently trying to repair it right now. I think we will be successful in getting it repaired, and I also have a replacement coming.
Okay. Flex seal.
Well, I didn't think of that.
Yeah. It'll do anything. Watch the commercials, you know.
Yeah, you can make a boat out of a screen door.
Yeah. I'm not riding with you in it. Okay.
The other item for Terry to cover is the water line replacement project that he's working on.
Yes, our large water line replacement project and also the automated meter reading, we talked about putting in for a loan and on a revolving loan, and that will trigger having to have engineering, so we're working on an RFQ to put out for engineering services for that, so we can get those projects going. And
What's the location of the water line, or is it an area or a main?
It was that basic area from Oak Street on the north and Sycamore on the south, and 10th Street on the east to 13th Street on the west. It's a fairly large area.
Yeah,
And that was replacing all the water lines in that area because we've had a lot of issues there.
that's good. Yeah,
Is that where the majority of your leaks are showing up primarily? In that report, it said 187 leaks replaced, like in 2019.
Oh, those were all over town.
Okay.
But there's the water line on 13th Street between Oak and the railroad tracks. I don't know if you could find a 5-foot section of pipe that doesn't have a repair clamp on it, so it's pretty bad.
I do have a question, backing up to the pool. Those components, are they fiberglass, like the slide, not the slide, yeah, the slide, the tubing, all that? How's that holding up? That fabrication?
On the slides,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't go down them, so
Okay, I don't know. I just wondered how that material is holding up.
It seems to be holding up pretty well. I know there needs to be some painting done, like on railings out there and things like that. And I'm not sure on the slides. That gets more into the rec area than I try and just deal with mechanical.
Sure, I understand. I was just curious if they had some type of treatment or something that prolonged the longevity.
Yeah, that I
of
don't know.
So-
I would think there would be something you could put on them to maybe preserve the finish on them.
Okay. I'll ask one of the rec guys next time I see him. Okay.
Wax them good, maybe go faster.
yeah.
And then we have some things out for bids or quotes. The Whiskey Creek RFQ for the engineering services for the EDA grant are due on the June 18th. The wayfinding signs fabrication and installation RFP is due on July 9th. Alley repair and EDA ramp near the Episcopal Church is open until contracted. And then the AWOL interior fence quotes are due by June 25th. The bids for cutting hay in the 30 acres on Peter Pan and West Laurel and the West Laurel Industrial Park are due on June 18th. And then we have bids for a KDOT aviation grant to renovate the South Apron run-up area that are due on June 30th. So I wanted you to be aware of all those.
Good.
And then I need David to come up and review. We had Renee with KMIT was here yesterday and gave us some good news.
Yeah, our safety program, again, received the gold star for last year for the work that the department's done in their safety efforts. And we had a modifier of 0.9, which is very good. So I give a lot of credit to the departments and their work efforts and all they do in the safety for the city of Independence.
And that does reduce our insurance for workers' comp?
Yes, that gives us, I believe it's 10% reduction in the premiums for 2021.
Great, great.
And then the next item is the ad valorem property tax receipts that Lacey was going to review, and I did make copies for you of that. So I know there's no way you can read it on the screen. And we did email those out as well.
I don't have this in front of me, but I believe this is showing that as of collections to date, which the June is our second payment of the year of current taxes due. And this information shows that our delinquency rate is at 11% right now. To put it in perspective, last year it was 9% at the end of the year. And I think our 4-year average for the last 4 years is right around 10.25%, I think maybe. So really not a huge effect of, from COVID like we maybe thought would happen. So looking pretty good budget-wise. Very comparable to last year.
Do you use that delinquency rate in your budgeting process?
I did not historically, no, we have not. We budget, there is a factor that I can put in there to show it for next year. With the way the formulas work, it's more complicated than you would think, and it spreads it out. You can't pick, I don't think you can pick your delinquency rate going to a specific fund. So it would be evenly distributed through all your funds that receive ad valorem taxes.
Thank you.
But I will look at it this year.
Indeed.
Does anyone have any comments on that one? Any questions?
Do I?
Do you have any questions on that slide?
So last year, our delinquency was 9%. How did that affect the budget since it wasn't taken out? How did you compensate for the 9% loss? We still generated enough surplus that,
We budget a reduction of cash every year,
okay.
so
So that's kind of how
yeah.
you're doing it too, so.
Yeah, we basically budget a reduction in cash, what you could put as a delinquency rate, I guess.
Okay. So you're kind of working that reduction of ad valorem tax, just coming at it a different direction? Okay.
If I understood the county right on their collections, they said for this half that they received statewide 90 to 95% of the collections that they were anticipating. But I think they were looking at what December's collections are going to look like. They were probably more concerned about that. So.
Right. And that would be our January distribution.
Right. Yep. To tide us over until, yeah. Okay.
Again, any further questions for Lacey?
I'm good.
You good?
I'm good.
Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you, Lacey.
She has the next item too. So don't leave.
Oh.
On the reinstating interest and penalty charges and shut-offs for non-pay.
We will be reinstating our previous policies of charging interest and penalties on late payments. I believe north side bills are due on the 5th of the month, so on the 6th is when we put on the penalties and interest charges. And south side, I believe, is due the 20th, so the 21st is when those penalties and interests would be assessed, and those will start in the month of July. So the bills that citizens are receiving now, they'll go out June 15th and June 30th for payments due in July. We will be reinstating interest and penalties, and then additionally shut-offs for non-pay.
So your process for notifying the customer, their account reaches a due date, then do you send a notice that they miss a payment so they're aware of it shortly after that due date, or how do you?
We tag doors the second and fourth Thursdays of every month. So we will put a notice on your door that you have a late payment and you are subject to turn off on the following Tuesday. So we give Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for them to pay. And then we turn off on the next Tuesday.
How soon after the due date do you tag the door?
It is, can I see a calendar? I could tell you.
A week or 2 weeks, just roughly?
2 weeks probably.
Okay. So there's.
Or more than that. So the bills that are due on the 5th, I think, get tagged, about 2 weeks. I think on the 14th.
Okay. Yeah, the door tag seems like.
Is that right? Okay.
to me, it seems better to notify with the door tag than depending upon mail. So that's good.
Correct.
It's on the
Ahead of
bills,
time.
yes, and the bills that are going out this month have a note on them that notify the customer of this reinstatement. And
Okay.
it gives specific dates, and actually an example of what their bill would be if they did not pay.
Okay. Good. Sounds like you're trying to do what we can to make it as easy as possible.
Yes, and for anyone listening, if you do need to, if you know you're not going to be able to make your payment, to please call City Hall and we will make payment arrangements, and just make those arrangements prior to the due date to avoid interest and penalties.
Great, that's appreciated. Okay.
The next one I have is the status of Miss Abel's Snack Shack. Barb?
I sent this picture to Kelly today because we just got the signs up, so I think it looks great. And so we're going to open Saturday. If you can see past the sign, there's our new concession windows. We also have one on the other side that is accommodating for ADA, our ADA window. So both those windows will come up and we can serve from either side of those. So we've done a lot of work on it and I'm excited. So we just wanted to share that with you. Any questions?
And then that's all I have.
Okay. Next item is Commissioner comments. Commissioner Hayes?
I have none.
Commissioner Yususi?
I have one that was generated by a previous conversation with Sean Turner and about the 10th, the West Main 10th to 8th Street project, and about that intersection where that convenience store is located and that driveway. But with O'Reilly's vacating their location on North 9, will that also affect that entry and exit point that's on Main Street? Because they have two entry and exit points for such a small parking lot. They have one on the west and then they have one on the south. So that was my question. I didn't think about it till later, but if that's going to have an effect on, if that'll be maybe another
Yeah, I'll ask.
part that's closed off when we start that project.
Yeah. It should be studied with the location
Yeah.
to the corner of the traffic of the highway and the angle that it does create
Yeah, and by the,
some concerns.
you don't know what's gonna happen with that building by the time the project actually starts too.
Right.
It's, depends on if it has a change of use and,
I think with the highway work and relocation, it kind of falls to us to make the decision.
I will ask about
Yeah.
that.
Okay?
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public concerns. We have a request from a citizen, Jeanette, is it Jeanette Terry Smith? Okay, would you like to come forward?
Thank you for letting me appear before you tonight. I'm a new citizen to your city from February of 2018. And I have had 11 police incidents since I've been here, none of my making. And I have been threatened with bodily harm. No arrests were made. I have been threatened last Monday, I believe, with the homicidal threat from a mentally ill person. To my knowledge, nothing was done. He wasn't taken in for treatment, and so he lives across the street from me, and I saw his car on the way here tonight, and I almost had a heart attack. Every person I've hired to work for me here to help remodel my home has stolen from me, and I have not even been able to file any kind of charges against them. I haven't been able to be heard by anyone in this town. I have been treated rudely. I have been hung up on. I have been refused to be seen by most of the people in city government here tonight. And I have had to deal with this issue for a year and a half, mostly in terror and defending myself. Saturday, a week ago, 10 people surrounded me. 10 adults, a few children, surrounded me. They had worked in my home. They absconded with my debit card, used it, and because they are affluent people who run an agency here that allowed them to have that many people, they called the police. I didn't. I was terrified, but it appears that I haven't seen anyone be arrested. A convicted felon who was just out of prison tried to break in my house. His fingerprints are still in my door to get his equipment that he left when he took $1,100 out of my house and left the job in a mess. And the police didn't even question him. He was actually kicking in my door. They failed to see him kicking my door with two other individuals that were yelling at the top of at their lungs that they were going to, and I'm not going to use the wording, but I think it's obvious. I have filed, I'm sorry I didn't provide a letter tonight. I had given up. My house is going up for sale, and I will probably be leaving your city. But I do not feel that any city has the right to deny access to its citizens when they have gone through situations like this. I had a very dear ring just walked right out of my house that cost $5,000. And they spent 8 minutes investigating it, would not take my information, would not meet with me. It's special circumstances when you have something over that. And I'm not being a smart aleck. I have a degree in criminal justice. I worked in a prison as a prison psychologist. I wrote programs for the state of Texas. I am not unaware of the law. I am unaware of the conduct that has been conducted towards me with your police officers. I am very opposed to the he said, she said, 7th grade method of interrogating someone who is a victim being placed in the same situation as someone who is a perpetrator. We are treated exactly the same, and it makes for a very dangerous remaining situation for the person who's left to stand there while that person watches the police drive off and leave them to be harmed, their home to be broken into. I live by myself. I'm an older woman, and these people have cut down my trees. No one responded to that. It's on my property. I don't believe your police department is adequately trained in the law and the statutes and how to apply the law. I do not think they have any sensitivity training that they are using to de-escalate situations that get out of hand and get people more agitated and more angry and more fearful. I believe there needs to be someone to look into the type of training they have and what kind of training they're getting for victims of mental illness, people with repeat offending situations that are threatening bodily harm to someone. From what I know of the law, someone who's a convicted felon kicking in a door is going to go to jail. 90% of police departments would do that. So I was just trying to get some clarity from your police chief, your city manager, most of the people in the process, just to find out why is there never arrests?
Well,
And
could I suggest that maybe you write a list of questions or?
I do have questions.
Well, if you would write those and then send them to City Hall.
Sir,
and-
I'm here tonight just to tell you, I have been denied to even have anything looked at. I've been denied to be let into the
if-
building. I've
if
been
you will-
denied to be, to even find out if someone went to jail, so I
Well,
didn't go to bed
For
every
a
night.
start point, so that we know exactly what the questions are, if you'd write your questions and your issues, and if you would mail it or take it to the City Hall and put attention Kelly Passeur.
I will
and then
not, sir.
Kelly
I will not. I've
will
already tried
get
to deal with Ms.
answers.
Chester, and she has refused
Well,
that.
Kelly will get the questions that you send
That
to
is-
each of us commissioners, and then we'll see what the issues are that we could work to see
I
that
am
the
asking
questions are
I'm asking
answered.
for a special meeting to have my issues heard by someone.
Well, first you
I
gotta
am
get
not
them
going
in
through
writing,
Ms.
because
Pester.
we're not gonna entertain just questions asked. I want them in writing so that we'll have a direction and we can have the answers prepared. So if you would do that, then we would have something to go for, and we'll work to resolve
Oh,
the answers.
I would be happy to do
and
that.
And then we can get back with you, have your address and your phone number, and if you're relocating, leave a forwarding address where we could contact you and get the answers. If we have them in writing, then that'll give us a source to answer, and then if, we'll have the dialogue to go from them. So I
Sir,
do appreciate you coming tonight.
I do have a question for you, Mr. Mayor. I also called your office, and you did not return my call, to try to find out where to take these questions and answers to someone who would not hang up on me, would not insult me, and would not try to bully me.
Well, I don't have an office, so that's why we'll resolve it, that if you'll take it to City Hall or mail it to, do we use a post office box or
811 West Laurel.
just mail it to?
I will hand deliver it to
Okay.
someone. I believe I told you, I've already tried to deal with
Well,
your acting city manager.
yeah, if-
My second question to you, sir, is why do we not have a city manager? Because what we have now in our police department appears to be an internal self-governing body.
No,
that
we're in the process of dealing with that, and we have an interim city manager that's conducting the business and keeping us informed. So that way, if you have it in writing, she can forward it and keep us informed.
Sir,
of
I'd
phone
like to meet
calls.
with her and bring it in writing and sit down and ask her. I do not believe that she is qualified in police, criminal justice matters to be
Well, that's
able
why
to
if
be the
we-
person.
If
to-
we have the list, that we can answer the questions, and we can take the time to research, to answer them, and then get you the response to that.
I would
It's going to
like to-
take time. It's not going to be a
I understand.
meeting with the questions and the answers right then.
Why can
So
I
first-
have a meeting with the people who have authority over my situation? I have lost $11,000 due to police procedure.
Well, get that in writing so
yes,
that
sir.
we'll have something to go for. I appreciate you coming tonight and sharing your concerns, and we'll get back with you
Who
once
am
we
I-
get the later.
Who am I going to be giving this to?
You're going to take it to City Hall and put attention to Kelly Passeur, acting
Sir,
city
I told you
manager.
I'm not going to do that.
Well,
We have
then-
already, maybe you need to ask her why.
Because it
need-
hasn't been in writing. Put it in writing, and then we can ask and
I
answer your questions.
respectfully request to give it to someone other than she.
Then take it to City Hall, to the counter where they pay, and just put attention, city manager or city commissioners on the envelope, and then it'll be delivered to the commissioners.
Am I being denied once again a meeting with the city commissioner and the mayor?
You're not denied a meeting. We're saying that to get the answers, I want them in writing. I want the questions in writing.
I have no problem with that.
Then that will be something to go forward with to seek out the answers.
Sir, if
So-
I am once again disrespected in the manner that I have been by your city officials, elected officials, and appointed officials, that is not going to be a good thing for the city of Independence. I pay taxes here, I live here, I own a home free and clear here, and I have the right to police protection. This is not something that can take 3 or 4 months. I'm going home to a man who made a homicidal threat against me, who came out and clearly identified himself as a paranoid schizophrenic. Your officers went door to door, embarrassing me in my neighborhood as if I did something wrong.
Well, put this in your letter of questions and summary of the events so that we'll have something to go on. So I do appreciate you. We're going to move on to the next item
Thank you.
on our agenda, which is the executive session. And I move that we recess for an executive session for review and discussion of city manager applications pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception, KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume at 8 o'clock in the Civic Center. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, we're back in session. There's no action to be taken from executive session. So the next item on the agenda is adjournment. I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.